It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Live from the Sweet and Snack Show. Dr. Jeremy Weiss here. I'm live at the Sweet and Snack Show. I'm here with Daniel, the founder of Upton Naturals. Daniel, first of all, I love the branding, the packaging, and kind of like the old style look. How did you come up with the name and the style of the branding?
Thank you. I knew that people like names and faces, and better Uptons than mine. Upton is a much better salesman than I am. We just sort of knew that Upton was going to be a unique name. There's not going to be another. It has a nicer ring to it. Upton's Naturals instead of like Dan's. You know, like that's maybe not.
Does have a certain ring to it?
Yeah.
How'd you come up with the product? Because this is, these are jerky bites. My favorite is a smoky original, but this is not made of meat. So talk about what this is made of and how you came up with the idea.
It is not made of meat. It's made of wheat. Really simple ingredients. It's basically just wheat, fruit juices in some cases. We've got 4 different flavors and spices. So we started out making a product called seitan, which is a refrigerated meat alternative. That was a favorite food of mine when I started the company going back 13 years now. And as we've evolved into different categories, we just thought that it would be nice to have something that's soy-free in the meatless jerky department. Yeah. Right now, they're
it's
pretty
the
much...
texture of a jerky.
Very much so.
How did you get this? It seemed like that would be hard to do.
I wish I had a magic answer, but it's pretty much just the protein of the wheat. Yeah. So, it's sort of like a protein for protein, has that sort of springy chew to it. And then if you think about it in terms of flavors, if you were to slice off a little piece of cow, it might not taste any different than, I don't know, even a piece of tofu or something, but it's just how you season it. So right. You don't just, all these jerkies that you see out there, they're usually smoked or seasoned in some way. So it's, in many ways, quite comparable.
So were you a vegetarian? How did you come up with this?
I've been a vegan for over 25 years.
Why?
Primarily for animal rights, so that's sort of what lured me in, and then it's
no
hard.
No judgment here. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's hard to argue the environmental and of course health benefits of vegan diet. And in my 25 plus years, it's certainly come a long way in terms of availability of products.
Yeah. What was it like decades ago?
It was pretty rough. I mean, there was one health food store that was like a 25-minute drive, and they had one kind of soy milk that came in those aseptic cartons, and it was mostly water with like a little bit of chalky soy dust at the bottom, and you'd shake it up and there'd still be chunks when you pour it into your glass, and not even really a lot of options at restaurants. You could have like the veggie chili or a hummus plate. We've got a restaurant as well attached to one of our factory buildings.
Oh, really?
And
like it's your company's restaurant.
Yeah. Oh. And we've got a hard ban. We've got a hard ban on chili, for the record, because of my early years.
Okay.
It's at Grand and Hoyne in the Westtown neighborhood of Chicago.
Yeah.
So
what made you start the difference between being vegan and then actually starting a vegan food company? What made you decide to start a company out of it?
Well, I knew that I wanted to do something that might allow for some activism. Food is a great way to do that.
Yeah.
I also wanted to work for myself. seitan that we started with was always a favorite of mine. At the time, there were no local brands and just one national brand, so kind of thought maybe that would be a good fit.
Yeah.
I had only ever made it one time, like at home, before deciding to start a seitan company, and it did not go very well.
That should have been your first.
It should have been a sign, but it didn't stop me. So.
So what kind of products do you have? Talk about some of the product lines.
Sure. So we started out with that seitan. We've got 6 different flavors of seitan for retail and food service.
What's popular?
Most popular is probably our chorizo, which is like a sort of like a Mexican sausage. We've got a bacon seitan, Italian, a traditional, which is very mild, garlic, onion, soy sauce, a ground.
And then you have different flavors of the jerky bites.
Yeah, we've got 4 different flavors of the jerky bites. Those are probably the most unique in terms of flavor profiles. We really wanted to try to make them as interesting as possible. The Smoky Original, of course, is your most basic. My favorite is probably the pineapple pink peppercorn, which is real nice. We've got a tarragon ginger lime and then a tamarind pepperoni. Going back before this, we just launched 4 Thai meal kits that are shelf stable, ready in just a minute to.
Yeah, use some interesting. You like a bacon macaroni or.
We also have some vegan mac and cheeses. Those are somewhat unique in the category. They're the only vegan mac, and I think maybe even the only natural one that has a pre-cooked noodle and a fluid sauce. You know, a lot of those macs have dry noodles and powders.
Yeah.
So those are pretty exciting. And actually, the bacon mac we sell at the restaurant here in Chicago. It's our number 1 selling item, which is why we decided to launch it for retail.
So talk about where can people buy the product? Where can people get it?
Well, the Jerky Bites is just launching. It'll probably be in stores early fall, but the Macs and the meal kits, the seitan, and we also haven't even talked about jackfruit yet.
Okay.
But that was probably our most exciting launch. About 4 years ago, we were the first in the world to package and market a pre-seasoned, almost ready to eat jackfruit. So I don't know. Have you had jackfruit before?
No. Are they? What do they look like on the?
So a mature.
pretty large?
They are. They're actually
Yeah.
the world's largest tree-borne fruit.
Okay.
So they can grow up to 80 pounds. It's rare that you see one that large,
Yeah.
but they do sell them here locally at produce stores, and I think Jewel has them.
I think it was at like Stanley's.
Rest in peace, Stanley's.
And saw one or something.
Yeah,
It's huge.
those ones are probably between 10 and 15 pounds, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
So that's the mature fruit, which is sweet. It's actually said to have been the inspiration for juicy fruit gum. We use the young fruit, which has a more neutral flavor, and it's got a texture that's similar to like a shredded pork or that kind of thing.
Okay.
So we have a barbecue and a chili lime, which are our 2 top flavors.
So online, where can people get it?
Whole Foods, Jewel has some of our items, Mariano's, Fresh Time. We're in a number of Target stores, Walmart, a few other Kroger banners, Safeway, pretty much
Amazon also?
everywhere. Amazon, all of our dry stuff is available through
Yeah.
Amazon, so like the meal kits, the Macs, and some of the jackfruit. The jerky will be eventually, but the seitan, it needs to be kept refrigerated.
So Daniel, I like to always ask 2 things. One, what's been a big challenge in the journey? Because I know starting a company and a food company, there's challenges. And then what's been a proud moment for you?
Sure. I guess in the beginning, I never really looked at anything as a challenge. I knew it was a conscious choice. Like, this is not going to be easy. I'm going to have to figure out all these things by myself. I don't have a food background or a business background or anything. It was more of a passion project. So I had a fairly slow growth plan, sort of. We started with food service and then slowly branched into retail, kind of region by region. Now we're in over 20 countries.
What do you attribute to that? Were you on the phone calling? Were you just showing up at local Chicago places? How are you growing slowly early on?
Yeah, it was just a lot of kind of just showing up. We did have a lot of help from Whole Foods locally. They were our first retailer and had some great programs where they support their local suppliers. And if you do well in 7 stores, you can get into 20, and then you can get into 40, and then you can kind of go region by region with them throughout the rest of the country. So we would basically take it region by region with them, and we would go, when we would launch, we'd go visit every single store and try to do in-store demos and participate in all the like the veg fests, like consumer fairs, that sort of thing. And I think it's really just our passion that and our authenticity that sort of caught on, I guess.
Right.
But of course, there is a certain point where you get so big that it's hard to do all those same things that you did when you started. And even in the last year, we've seen so much growth. It's in terms of challenges, I would say employees can be difficult to find. We've had some challenges finding enough people to do the work that we need. And the space itself, we've been in 4 buildings now. So we started out just, technically 5. Yeah, well, we had like a shared kitchen, and we saved up, once we were selling to a handful of restaurants to then get our own space, and then outgrew that. Went into almost like I'd call it a temporary space for 2 years while we were building the space that has our cafe attached to it. We used to do all of our production there as well. And I'd say we had kind of like a 5-year plan. That building is just under 10,000 square feet, of which 3,600 maybe is production space. And we're like, okay, it'll be maybe 5 years, and we'll start to look in the neighborhood at some other places that we could move production to, or different lines. And sure enough, in like 2.5 years, it was wall to wall, and people were trying to work to get things done.
That's amazing.
It was pretty wild. So now we're in.
It's a pain to move.
It is.
I mean, you have all this equipment.
Yes.
I'm getting ulcer thinking about it.
Yeah, it.
Like, oh, forget it. Just cram more people in there.
It's hard to say no. Once things are going, you can't just tell Walmart, or the distributor really. You can't say, don't sell to Walmart or don't sell to these stores.
You just got to keep growing.
Just got to keep going. It helps keep things interesting too, challenging but interesting. Right now we're in 42,000 square feet, so we made a really huge jump. In terms of production space, it was more than 10 times the size. We're filling that up fairly quickly, but we also have some additional space to grow on the property.
Wow. That's amazing. What's been a proud moment for you?
Proudest moment, I would say, would be launching that jackfruit. We worked really hard on that, finding a supplier. When we launched it, before that, you could only buy it in a 20-ounce can, usually at like an Asian specialty food store.
Right.
Most of those cans are loaded with sodium and have preservatives, and then you take it home and you're still cooking something for an hour to 3 hours. And I must have called every single company that had a can on the shelf saying, please, I really want to buy this from you in bulk, because I want to season it, I want to do this thing. And most people either didn't reply, or I had people laugh at me.
Why?
Just because they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. Americans don't want that much jackfruit. That's crazy. We're not interested. So it essentially took me getting on a plane and traveling all over Southeast Asia to try to find the right partner or partners really to source and do the production and figure out how to make it happen.
You were determined to get that jackfruit.
Quite determined, yeah. And since then, I've seen some of those bigger companies with the cans at different trade shows and did my best to pretty woman them. If you've seen the scene where they, big mistake, but they still can't really be bothered, like
They're lost, right?
They're lost.
Yeah.
But that was an exciting time to see that.
Well, check out Upton Naturals, the jerky bites, all the other products they have. What's the website we could point people towards?
It's just uptonsnaturals.com.
Uptonsnaturals.com. Thank you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.